My name is Aaron, and I solve problems. I'm a systems analyst, which basically means I break down complex chaos into clean patterns. At work, that's databases and workflows. At home, it was always about keeping the peace, until the moment peace made me look like a fool. I don't talk much, especially in groups. I listen. I calculate. People assume that means I'm passive. I've let them believe that. Sometimes, silence isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's a weapon that waits for the right moment to be drawn. Christmas at my in-laws' house was always crowded. Too many opinions, too much wine, and the kind of cheer that felt practiced. I'd learned to smile through it. My kids were happy, running between chairs with sticky fingers and crumpled wrapping paper clinging to their socks. My wife, Rachel, wore the red dress I bought her 2 years ago, the one that used to mean something. She was radiant, laughing hard at nothing. I stood in the corner sipping water, watching the room spin in a rhythm I no longer felt part of. Then her mother, Linda, lifted her glass. She was always sharp, always judging me behind a smile. To family, she said. To real love. And to the truth coming out, eventually. A few people chuckled. Then she looked directly at me and added, I'm just glad your kids aren't really yours. And that was it. That was the moment. The room didn't go silent. They laughed. Rachel laughed. Not a polite chuckle, an open, hand over her mouth burst of laughter like it was the funniest thing said all night. Let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. We are on a journey to our first 100 subscribers. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Sam Palmer from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I didn't react to what just happened. I didn't ask for clarification or explode in defense. I looked at my children, my son clutching a Star Wars figure, my daughter half buried in glitter, and then I looked back at the woman I married. And in that second, I didn't feel hurt. I felt clear. I stood, straightened my coat, and walked out without a word. No one followed. No one called out. Not even Rachel. That silence, it told me everything I needed to know. I drove aimlessly for a while, past neighborhoods glowing with forced holiday spirit. My hands shook, but my mind was sharp. The pieces clicked together like a code finally cracking. This wasn't about one joke. It was about every dinner I wasn't really invited to, every backhanded comment disguised as concern, every time Rachel stayed quiet when her mother poked at me. I always assumed they just didn't like me. But now I wondered, had they ever respected me at all? Or was I just a placeholder in someone else's carefully curated life? At a hotel 20 miles from home, I lay on the unfamiliar bed and stared at the ceiling. The quiet was different here, a heavy, dense. I didn't sleep. I replayed the laughter, frame by frame. Not just the words, but her face, Rachel's. There was something there, behind her smile. Not cruelty. Not humor. Panic. I thought about that look the way I'd analyze an unexpected data result. Was it fear? Guilt? What had she been so afraid would come out? By dawn, I had made 2 decisions. I called a lawyer I had on retainer through work benefits, someone I'd never expected to actually use. I asked her to start paperwork for divorce. I also asked for something else, paternity tests. She paused for a moment before replying, Are you sure you want to go down that road? I didn't answer her question. I just repeated mine. The idea that my children might not be mine had never even occurred to me before that night. And even now, I didn't believe it. But belief wasn't the same as proof. And after seeing them laugh, after seeing her laugh, I needed more than belief. I needed clarity, logic, evidence. I couldn't unhear those words. And I couldn't ignore the possibility that my entire life had been shaped around a lie someone else thought was funny enough to toast to. I turned off my phone that day, left every message unread. I didn't want apologies or explanations soaked in wine and regret. I wanted silence. I wanted space. If they were going to weaponize doubt, I was going to arm myself with truth. I wasn't planning revenge then. I wasn't planning anything, really. I just knew I was done pretending. Done being the man who smoothed over what should have been confronted. That part of me died the second she laughed with them. I didn't go home the next day. I didn't even drive near it. My phone buzzed endlessly from inside the hotel room drawer where I left it. Rachel. Her sister. Where are you? The kids are worried. It was just a joke. I let the screen go black. I wasn't ready to speak to anyone, not even my children. That part haunted me the most, not being there to say goodnight. But I also knew coming back too soon would have made me weak. And I'd spent too many years swallowing small humiliations in the name of staying present. I stayed at that mid-tier hotel for 3 days. I ordered simple food and barely touched it. I walked circles around the block at night in the cold. Every time I thought of going home, I saw Rachel laughing. Not just laughing, but joining in. Her hand over her mouth, like she was 16 again. The way her shoulders shook. There was no shock in her face. No discomfort. She didn't look like someone who just heard her mother say something unspeakable. She looked like someone caught. And that made everything worse. On the third morning, my lawyer called me back. Her name was Elise. She had a voice like crushed velvet, too calm for the kind of pain I was sitting in. I've started the paperwork, she said. We'll need to serve her formally in the next few days. And the lab kits are en route. I asked how long it would take. Depends, she said. But within 10 business days, you'll know. I thanked her and hung up. Just like that. Like I was ordering test results for a project, not dismantling the foundation of my family. I kept thinking about the moment Linda said it. The way her wine glass caught the light. The way she held the pause, like a stage actor waiting for applause. She'd been sitting on that comment, probably for months. And Rachel hadn't stopped her. What if she had told her mother something in confidence? Something I didn't know? Had they laughed about me before? Was I the punchline at their dinners when I stayed home with the kids? I started tracing back conversations in my head, looking for missed signals. They came faster than I wanted to admit. One night, before the party, I'd found a crumpled receipt in Rachel's coat pocket, 2 glasses of wine, an appetizer, and a dessert, all under her name. But it wasn't from a lunch place she frequented. It was from a bistro across town, an intimate spot with low lights and no kids' menu. I asked her about it. She said it was her coworker, Jenna. She just got dumped, she'd explained. I took her out for a event. At the time, I nodded. I even admired her for being kind. But now that receipt had claws. I'd also forgotten the voicemail. A few months back, when Rachel was showering, her phone buzzed and I saw a notification. Are you sure he doesn't suspect? The message was quickly deleted. When I asked her about it, she rolled her eyes and said it was spam, probably part of some clickbait scam. I let it go, because I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that silence between us was just fatigue, not betrayal. But silence has a shape. And once you know how to read it, it becomes deafening. When the test kits arrived, I held them in my hands like they were evidence bags. It felt wrong, like I was betraying my kids by even needing proof. I sat on the edge of the bed that night and stared at their photos on my phone, back when we were happy or pretending well enough to pass. My son has my ears. My daughter has my chin. But what if biology meant nothing? What if love wasn't enough to secure the truth? I didn't sleep. I just waited for morning and mailed the samples without ceremony. In the days that followed, the silence grew heavy in a different way. Rachel's messages turned from confusion to guilt to anger. I'm trying to talk to you like an adult. You owe me a conversation, at least for the kids. They miss you. That last one almost broke me. But she didn't say I miss you. Just they do. Like she had already emotionally filed me away. Like I was a problem to solve before the year turned over. And that's when I started thinking. Maybe she was planning something. It was the timeline that didn't make sense. The way her mother phrased the insult. The timing of the joke. It was too specific. Too barbed. And Rachel's laugh? It wasn't joyful. It was startled. Nervous. Like someone watching a secret slip from someone else's mouth. I realized I'd been so focused on the pain of the insult, I missed the panic in her eyes. What if Linda wasn't just mocking me? What if she was taking a shot at her own daughter? And Rachel just laughed to cover the sound of everything falling apart. The test results came back 3 days later. I opened the email while sitting at a gas station, engine running, my hands still on the steering wheel. My fingers were numb even though the heat was on full blast. I expected a pause inside myself, some dramatic moment of suspense. But instead, there was only relief. Simple, flat relief. The kids were mine. Biologically, unequivocally. I had their DNA and mine on paper now, signed off by a lab, like receipts. I thought the clarity would bring peace. It didn't. It only shifted the question from if to why. If the kids were mine, then Linda's attack made even less sense, unless she was lying on purpose. Not just stirring the pot, but detonating something on purpose. And Rachel's laughter, that haunted me more now, not less. Because it meant she wasn't laughing at a truth. She was laughing at a lie. A cruel one that undermined our entire family. Unless, of course, she wasn't laughing at the joke at all. Unless she was laughing out of panic, because something bigger had just slipped through the cracks. That's when I went back into the files. Elise had forwarded me copies of communications from Rachel's email, discovered during legal prep for the custody filings. Nothing invasive, nothing illegal, just shared accounts and overlapping access we'd never truly separated. There were messages to her sister about how it's going to be hard, but I think this is best. There was a string of Zillow links, all clustered around Oregon. One message to a school district about enrollment options for 2 children in January. A rental deposit. A car shipping quote. All dated just days before the Christmas party. It wasn't subtle. It was a plan. I just sat there for a long time, staring at the timeline. She was going to leave. Not after a conversation. Not after therapy. After the holidays. A clean break. A holiday smile, and then an escape. She was going to take them, my kids, and disappear into a new life while I stood in the wreckage, wondering where the hell everything had gone wrong. That meant Linda's comment wasn't random. It was precise. It was rage. Because she hadn't been told either. She thought the kids weren't mine, and wanted to weaponize that on her way out. The truth was so bitter it tasted metallic. Rachel hadn't defended me that night because her mother's lie wasn't far from the one she had been preparing. She hadn't corrected her because in her mind, both betrayals would be handled the same way, with silence and distance. She wasn't going to fight for the truth because she had already decided to live a new one. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. She was about to steal my children and start over. And I'd been sitting there thinking maybe we needed couples therapy. I drove home that day. Not to apologize. Not to reconcile. I went to see my kids. I walked in like nothing happened. The house was quiet. Rachel was at work. The kids were watching a movie in their pajamas, surrounded by leftover wrapping paper. They ran to me like no time had passed. My daughter hugged me so tightly I almost dropped to my knees. My son said, "Mom told us you were at a meeting." I just smiled and said, "I missed you." Because the truth was too heavy to give them just yet. When Rachel came home, her face cracked wide open. She wasn't expecting to see me. "Hey," she said, voice trembling. "You're back." I told her I'd come to spend time with the kids, that I wanted to talk soon, but not tonight. Her eyes searched my face for clues. I gave her none. I didn't mention the emails, the lease, the school district. I just kissed the kids goodnight and left. That night, I sat in my car and wrote out a timeline. Every date, every link, every receipt. I wasn't preparing for a confrontation. I was preparing for custody. I emailed Elise everything. She replied the next morning, "This changes things. We'll need to escalate the custody filing." And just like that, the tone of my divorce flipped. I was no longer reacting. I was building a case. Rachel reached out that same day with an offer to talk. I said I needed a little more time. She agreed too quickly. She was worried, but she didn't know what I knew. And I intended to keep it that way until it was too late for her to twist it. She wasn't going to spin this. I'd seen enough. She didn't know I'd already signed the papers. That the process had started moving quietly beneath her feet, like a fault line she couldn't feel until it cracked open. Over the next few days, I kept showing up for the kids. School drop-offs, dinners, quiet playtime. Rachel stayed cordial but watchful. I could see her recalculating every time I didn't bring up Christmas. Every time I smiled without accusation. She thought maybe I was just hurt. Maybe I'd come back. Maybe the test came back negative, and now I was just trying to forgive her for laughing. But she didn't understand yet that this wasn't about forgiveness. This was about truth, and reclaiming everything she had nearly taken from me under the cover of routine. One night, I stood outside the kids' bedroom door after putting them to sleep and just listened to their breathing. It was the kind of sound that usually calmed me, but now it fueled me. They were mine. They had always been mine. And I had nearly let someone walk off with them because I thought being a good man meant staying quiet. That night, I promised myself something. No matter how long this fight took, I would never again be the man who let himself be humiliated in front of his own children. I would be the man who protected them, even if that meant walking through fire with a calm face and cold hands. By the second week of January, Rachel started trying harder. She made coffee before I woke up, left notes on the counter with half-hearted jokes from better years. She even picked up dinner from that Indian place I liked and said, "I remembered your order," like that meant something. I didn't challenge her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I was polite, present, measured. But in my mind, everything was filing into place. Love, when it's real, doesn't come with secrets. And when it dies, it doesn't beg in small, desperate gestures. She didn't know I'd seen everything. That I knew about the rental agreement in Oregon. That I'd read the emails to her sister. That I'd seen her browser search history, custody laws by state, relocation loopholes, emotional distress clauses. All of it painted a picture of someone who had already imagined life without me. Not post-divorce. Just me removed entirely. She didn't want joint custody. She wanted escape. A clean wipe of her past. She was going to walk away with the kids like I was an empty chair she no longer needed at the table. But now the plan was burning quietly in her hands, and she had no idea how close the flames were. I hadn't mentioned Linda. Not the defamation suit. Not the recording from Christmas that Elise found on the Nest cam we kept running above the fireplace. Rachel thought we just drifted into a quiet, mutual dissolution. She had no clue I was documenting everything. When she got home, how she spoke to the kids, what they said about their time with her. I wasn't compiling rage. I was compiling evidence. I'd learned to listen with intent now. When she asked to sit down and talk like adults, I agreed. We sat at opposite ends of the kitchen table, late at night, the kids asleep upstairs. She opened with a sigh. I know Christmas was bad. I didn't handle it right. Neither did my mom. I said nothing. Just waited. She went on. I wasn't laughing at you. I was just shocked. And I didn't want to make a scene. Her voice cracked like it wanted sympathy, but she wasn't ready to be honest. She hadn't even apologized. Just explained. I nodded like I understood. She tried to probe gently after that. Are we okay? Are you thinking about coming home? It was a trick question. I never left home. I just temporarily removed myself. The house was in my name. The savings account, too. She didn't know how much control I'd kept because I never flaunted it. I said I needed time. That things were complicated. I used her words against her. She seemed relieved. Like she'd bought herself time. But what she didn't see was the quiet horror building behind my eyes. She thought this was a thaw. It was actually a reset. Elise filed the updated custody motion the next morning. Full physical and legal custody. Grounds. Intent to relocate without disclosure. Evidence submitted. Email threads, travel confirmations, lease agreements, the recording from the Christmas party, and the paternity test results proving her mother's claim was deliberately false. Linda had made a legally defamatory statement in front of witnesses, and Rachel had allowed it to stand. That wasn't just a marriage problem. That was a parental stability issue. And I had the timestamps to prove she'd planned her exit weeks before I ever walked out. When the court date was set, I didn't tell Rachel immediately. I waited. I watched. I spent afternoons with the kids, helping them with school projects, quietly teaching them how to trust the truth of silence. I told my son that being strong didn't always mean being loud. That some of the strongest people in the world win without ever raising their voice. He nodded like he understood, even though he's only 7. But kids feel tension even when they don't understand it. They know when love is conditional. And they remember who made it feel secure. The night before the official custody hearing was served, Rachel cornered me after dinner. You're acting like everything's fine, she snapped. Her voice trembled. Is this your version of punishment? Silence. I tilted my head, studied her face. I'm just trying to do what's best for the kids. That line shattered her. She knew then. She wasn't talking to the man who used to beg for peace anymore. She was talking to the man who had watched her plan an escape and quietly cut every exit before she reached the door. I left the next morning with the kids. Told her I was taking them to school and would keep them after, as part of my custody hours, granted temporarily under a new motion she hadn't yet read. Elise had timed the service for noon. Rachel called me at 12:16 p.m. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. Then another. The first was confusion. The second was fury. By the third, it was tears. But none of them said, "I'm sorry." None of them admitted what she tried to do. Just endless spinning in a circle she could no longer control. That night, the kids and I made pancakes for dinner. My daughter spilled flour everywhere. My son put on music. I let them stay up 30 minutes past bedtime. When they were finally asleep, I sat alone on the porch and listened to the quiet. There was no war raging in my chest anymore. Only resolve. Revenge didn't come with fireworks. It came with calendars, with screenshots, with timing. Rachel had tried to play the long game, but she forgot. I analyze systems. I see the code beneath behavior. And the only thing more powerful than rage is restraint. Family court doesn't look like justice. It looks like beige walls, coffee-stained carpets, and too many people pretending they're not falling apart. I sat beside Elise in that cramped courtroom, watching Rachel across the aisle with a pin clutched like a lifeline. Her hair was too neat. Her makeup was defensive. And when she glanced at me, I didn't look away. Not to intimidate, just to let her know. I saw everything now. Every fake apology. Every attempt at warmth. Every carefully packed lie hidden behind maternal smiles. It was all here with us in the room now. The judge was a man in his 60s with tired eyes and no patience for drama. Elise opened our case methodically, no theatrics. Just dates, documents, verified emails, the paternity results, and most importantly, the video from Christmas. The audio was clean. Linda's voice rang out like a knife across glass. "I'm just glad your kids aren't really yours." Then the laughter. Rachel's included. The judge didn't react. Not visibly. But I saw the muscle tighten in his jaw. He didn't need emotion to rule. He just needed evidence. And we brought a mountain of it. Rachel's attorney tried to reframe the narrative. Said I'd been distant for years. Said I withdrew after work, was emotionally unavailable. They even pulled up a therapist's note from a session we tried once, one where Rachel claimed I was non-confrontational to a fault. I almost smiled. That wasn't a defense. That was the strategy. My silence had protected her for years, just like it protected me now. Because while she was arguing emotional discomfort, we were proving intent. She didn't just want to leave. She wanted to leave with the kids and leave me erased. Then came the emails, her writing in her own words, talking about the fresh start, the clean slate, how she was buying time until the holidays passed. Rachel didn't look up. Her face was frozen. Linda wasn't present in court, but her deposition had been submitted. A flimsy attempt to claim the comment was a joke taken out of context. Elise countered with the paternity test. The insult wasn't just cruel. It was false and meant to humiliate. Defamation wasn't hard to prove when the lie could be so clearly disproven. Intentional malice? That was obvious. The judge asked Rachel to respond directly. She stood, her hands trembling, and tried to thread a needle made of excuses. "I never planned to cut him out," she said. "I was just scared. I didn't know what I wanted." He asked if she had informed me of the move. She said no. He asked if she had discussed the school enrollment plans with me. Again, no. Every no carved a deeper silence around her. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. Because this wasn't a victory. This was the funeral of a version of my life I'd already buried. The final order came quickly. Full physical and legal custody granted to me, pending review in 1 year. Rachel was allowed supervised visitation. The judge cited preemptive intent to relocate without disclosure and failure to dispute defamatory harm within a family context. She didn't cry. Not right away. She just sat down like someone had been shot in front of her, and she wasn't sure if it was real yet. And when the gavel hit the desk, it was like a spell broke. My phone vibrated once. A message from Linda. "You happy now?" I didn't respond. Outside the courtroom, Rachel followed me into the hallway. "Please," she said, "don't do this. You're punishing me for something I didn't even say." I turned to her, finally. The first time in weeks I really looked at her without detachment. "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself from someone who would have let me lose everything in silence." She opened her mouth to argue, but I walked away before she could speak. Not because I needed the last word. Because I'd already had it, signed, filed, and sealed by the law. The media didn't hear about it. Friends only got the versions she told. I let them believe whatever made them feel righteous. Some said I was cruel. Others said I was broken. A few stayed silent. But the people who mattered, my kids, only knew that I was there. Every morning, every night. That I didn't leave them, even when I could have. That I didn't fight fire with fire. I fought it with proof. I never told them what their grandmother said. I never played the recording in front of them. I let that ugliness rot in the silence it deserved. Weeks passed. The house grew warmer. I repainted the living room, removed the Nest Cam, burned the red dress she wore that night. Not in rage, in ritual. That dress became the symbol of her complicity, her cowardice. I wasn't erasing her. I was erasing that version of me, the one who would have accepted the smallest apology just to keep peace. The man who thought love meant staying even after the laughter stopped. That man was gone. And in his place was someone who knew exactly how sharp silence could be, if you wielded it the right way. My house is quieter now, but not empty. The silence is different than it was before. Back then, silence meant uncertainty. What was being said behind my back? What wasn't being said to my face? What truths were being smothered beneath smiles? Now, silence is a kind of peace. The kids laugh more. They're louder than ever, really. But when they sleep, the quiet settles into the walls like something earned. There's no more performance. No more undercurrents. Just the sound of a man who fought to stay present, and two children who no longer feel the ground shifting under them. I repainted the living room 3 weeks after the ruling. Took down the framed photo of Rachel's side of the family. Replaced it with a crayon drawing my daughter made of our house. The roof is crooked. One window's floating in midair. But everyone in the picture is smiling. When I asked her what the picture was, she said, "It's when everything is good again." I didn't correct her. Kids know things in ways adults forget. She didn't need to understand court filings or defamation law. She just knew I stayed. That I didn't vanish when things got ugly. Sometimes I get letters. Rachel sends them every 2 weeks. Sometimes they're handwritten. Sometimes typed. She never says, "I'm sorry," in a way that matters. It's always soft language. I wish things had been different. I made mistakes. I just felt lost. She signs them, "Love R." I don't respond. I don't even open most of them now. They're not for me. They're for her. She's trying to rewrite a version of events she can live with. But that's the thing about truth. Once you've stood inside it, you can't fit back into a lie without suffocating. My mother-in-law hasn't reached out directly. She sends messages through mutual friends. I hear things like, "She's not doing well," or "She regrets how far things went." One friend even said, "She just wants your forgiveness so she can sleep at night." I laughed at that one. Not a cruel laugh. Just tired. Because forgiveness, when it's demanded for comfort, isn't forgiveness. It's self-preservation wearing perfume. I'm not bitter, but I'm also not a priest. My job was never to cleanse their guilt. It was to survive their silence. And I did that. On my own terms. The court's 1-year review is coming up in a few months. I'm not nervous. The kids are doing better in school. Their teachers say they're more focused, more settled. My son stopped biting his nails. My daughter doesn't cry when she says goodbye anymore. These are things judges can't quantify. But I see them. I live them. Every breakfast. Every late-night conversation about why the moon changes shape. Every weekend chore turned into a game. I didn't just win custody. I won clarity. And that's something no court can ever grant. You earned that in the trenches. I haven't started dating again. Not because I'm scared or angry. I just don't need noise right now. For the first time in years, my life doesn't feel like a performance. I don't feel like I'm holding my breath to keep peace. There's a freedom in that I didn't expect. I take walks in the evening, sometimes without music. I breathe in the quiet. I memorize it. Because it reminds me that I made it through something people don't talk about enough. The kind of betrayal that doesn't leave bruises, just absences. The kind that pretends to be normal until it rots your sense of self. One night, while putting the kids to bed, my daughter asked why I never yell. It stopped me cold. I asked her what she meant. She said, "Even when you're mad, you don't yell like other dads." I thought about that for a while. Then I told her, because truth doesn't need to scream to be real. It just needs to stay standing. She nodded like she understood, even though she couldn't. But maybe one day she will. When she's older. When someone tries to gaslight her. When she needs to remember that silence can also mean strength. The ornament she made, the one from Christmas, I kept it. It's tucked inside a small drawer in my desk. I couldn't hang it back on the tree. Not yet. Maybe never. But I couldn't throw it away either. That ornament was made before everything cracked open, before I saw how deep the rot went. It reminds me that innocence doesn't protect you, but clarity does. That truth, even when it's quiet and heavy, is the only thing worth holding on to. Everything else, the apologies, the excuses, the spin, those are just noise pretending to be music. So no, I don't hate Rachel. I don't even hate Linda. I don't think about revenge anymore. Not really. Because this was never about punishing them. It was about defending myself in a world that expected me to take the hit and smile, to swallow humiliation in the name of peace. But I didn't. I stood up from that table, walked out, and never looked back. And the thing is, they still don't know how I did it. Because I didn't need to raise my voice. I just stopped pretending. And that was enough. If this story held you all the way to the end, take a second to subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Every day, I drop true-to-life psychological revenge stories like this one, quiet storms where dignity speaks louder than rage. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or silenced, these stories are for you. Hit that bell so you never miss a moment. See you soon in the next story.